The Fox5 LiveZone. Question for you. Have you ever wondered why dating is so hard nowadays? Perhaps you're wondering why you, yes, you, can't find a partner. How did it get this bad? All questions that many of you are asking as you currently date day in and day out. Hence, enter my next guest. I'm referring to celebrity matchmaker April Davis. She is the founder of LUMA Luxury Matchmaking, and she joins us right here on the Live Zone. Good to see you, April. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, so I got to tell you, you you got a lot of folks on the edge, if you will, because they're waiting to find out what you have to say. It's funny. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine on the way to work this morning, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be speaking with April." He said, "Oh my gosh, I'm tuning in because I'm having so many troubles." I would suspect you hear that time and time again, April.
Yes, it's why I do what I do. People are really frustrated with the apps and they just want to connect and they want to meet their person that they can bond with and just go through life with. There's nothing more important than our relationships that we have at the end of the day.
I was reading a quote, and you stated that dating isn't broken, but it has changed. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? She's right. How did you come to?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, so think about back in the day, people got together because they absolutely needed each other to exist. A woman needed a man in order to, because maybe she couldn't work, she couldn't make money on her own, and they just really existed because they had to in order to survive ultimately. And nowadays, people can choose who they're with not because of just monetary considerations, but because of love and so many other things. There's just a lot of different factors that go into play nowadays. And, people ultimately they're looking for that person that they can just, share the ups and the downs and everything in between in life. What?
Yeah, that thing called LOVE. Oh my gosh, it's it's so hard
Exactly.
nowadays. And so, with that being said, I'm curious. The biggest modern day dating challenges.
Well, so you have this society that exists that where we think that we can just order up a person similar to ordering something off of Amazon. And people have these really unrealistic things that they may be looking for in a person. So they're online, they're on these apps, and they're just swiping. And there's almost too many options available, and that actually leads to over not only being overwhelmed, but more frustration and just unhappiness in general. It's kind of like when you go to Home Depot to try to figure out a paint color to choose. There's just too many options and you're overwhelmed. So I think people are just really frustrated because people just don't really present themselves. They present themselves one way and they're totally different when you meet with them in
Mm.
person. There's just a lot of scammers, a lot of spammers, bots, and of course there's different ulterior motives that people might be looking for. A lot of people are just looking for that dopamine hit of attention
Ooh.
online and on these apps. And whereas there's a subset of people that actually do want a serious committed relationship, and that's ultimately why they end up going to a matchmaker like myself, because they really want something serious. They're not just wanting to waste their time online with a bunch of swiping.
Yeah. Speaking of swiping, it's so funny. One of the things that you have touched on in the past is swipe fatigue. And I thought about that.
Yes.
It's, yeah, so, to the left, to the left, to the right, to the right. Oh my gosh, I'm just burnt out with it.
Yeah, exactly. It is it's a part-time job, really, to sit there and message back and forth, try to figure out, who somebody is. And I just tell people, if you're going to do the apps, don't spend a lot of time with the messaging. Just get in front of the person, even if it's doing a Zoom call or, FaceTime or some way, getting in front of them so you can get to know them. Or, of course, the best way is actually going on a date in person. And I always recommend doing something fun on that date where it's more interactive, not just sitting across the table from one another where
Mm.
you feel like you're in an interview.
Yeah, to that point, I would argue one should never go to the movies because all you're doing is just sitting
Yeah,
there and watching
definitely.
someone
Definitely
sitting
not.
on the entertainment.
Not a good date.
Hey, so April, right here in the nation's capital, we are the home of ghosting, if you will. We lead the nation. So, with that
Oh,
being said,
wonderful.
we have a big issue here. But not only that,
Mhm.
apparently breadcrumbing happens to be a thing as well. Do tell.
It's just, dragging somebody along where they don't want to cut it off completely and say that there isn't potential in the future. So they'll kind of be engaged a little bit and but not fully engaged where they're putting in a real effort in seeing that person. They're just kind of, leaving that person dangling along. And yeah, the ghosting, I think it's just kind of a reflection of society where people have lost their manners and they can't have those hard conversations. Like, we're not given those, we have to learn those skills of having difficult conversations and, being a bigger person and being an adult. And, people just aren't taught that. So they just defer to disappearing. And that's where ghosting has come along. It's either
Yeah.
they ghost or they just kind of, dangle someone along and not really put any effort
Yeah.
into the relationship to further it.
They say you learn something new every day. I have definitely now learned what breadcrumbing is. That's a new one for me. You
Yeah.
touched on this earlier, and that happened to be unrealistic expectations. And I love how you
Mhm.
put it. In this case, you're talking about every single selfie you see online is polished, filtered, or sometimes even AI is used. And you know what, April?
Mhm.
I'm guilty of it.
Well, I mean, our cameras are amazing, right? I mean, even right now, I don't have a filter on, but it's like the lighting, if you get everything set up right, even makeup, it's kind of hiding who we really are. And we start to think that that's how people are just going to wake up looking, and it's not reality. So people will send us pictures of, oh, I'm looking for somebody that looks like this, and it's like an Instagram model. I'm like, well, she doesn't even look like that. So let's get realistic. And then also, they might be looking for this whole laundry list of things and character traits or whatever is important to them that they think they need in a person. And I push back and always will tell people, okay, let's focus on the values, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter so much, some of these little ancillary type things, such as, what kind of car they drive, or maybe what kind of vacations they like to do. I mean, these are things that you can work out, but you can't change if somebody wants to have kids, or if family is important to them overall, and their religion. Those kinds of things are your core values, and there's just no getting around them. And these are the kinds of things that ultimately will lead people to a divorce. And oftentimes people overlook these things at the beginning, and they really shouldn't. I'm married to a divorce attorney, so I have a different perspective on a lot of things. So I hear about, why people end up in divorce court, and I don't want that to happen to my clients. So I work really hard to get them to focus on what's important and long lasting.
April, I have a feeling you are the cheat code. I'm just feeling that. Last but not least, there are so many folks that they're listening and they have heard with regard to what you said surrounding dating, but they're still dealing with that one thing that they fear, and that is rejection.
Oh, yes. I mean, that is actually the number one fear. It's not, so much, people aren't afraid of death or public speaking as much. It's more the rejection, or just being, looked upon negatively. And yeah, so it's really hard for people to put themselves out there. And especially now, for men, it's really hard for them to want to make that first move. They're kind of afraid to, because of, the whole Me Too movement, and they just don't want to be a creep, right? And so it makes them nervous to even ask a woman out. And so I really encourage both people to make a move, and for women to open the door, and I'll make sure that people feel comfortable going out to her and, asking her out, or maybe she needs to make the first move.
So you are officially a celebrity matchmaker, but as we wrap up here, I got to ask, regular folk like me, can I reach out to you for your services?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with people from all kinds of backgrounds. It's people that ultimately want a serious, committed relationship, and they don't want to deal with the apps. They want that bond type of relationship, and, they just want to find their person.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can do just that. A lot of folks want that in 2025. Yet again, we have been speaking with
Absolutely.
April Davis. She's the founder of LUMA Luxury Matchmaking and joined us right here on the Live Zone. I enjoyed this, April. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, guys, we'll take a break. On the flip side of that break, producer Chris joins us with the sizzling topics. He's up next right here on the Live Zone.